to Melody Short. She is the marketing coordinator for the Metropolitan Business League, and she is going to welcome you and introduce our first speaker. Melody, please take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of the Metropolitan Business League, our Board of Directors and CEO Floyd Miller, I'd like to welcome you to our virtual town hall series, created to ensure we continue our commitment to small women and minority-owned businesses and to show our ability to pivot during unprecedented times. The continuation of this series, which launched originally in April, right now we're focusing on the recovery period, initially of COVID, but considering the climate of our city, we thought that it was important for us to make another pivot. And here we are gathered today for this incredible and very much so needed emergency town hall. Before we get started, I do want to invite you to learn more about the MBL on our website at thembl.org. Towards the end of the call, as we wrap up, I'll give you some additional information as it relates to our programming and opportunities that are available. But I don't think we delay this moment. And so I just want to do a quick check-in with regard to our scheduled first speaker. Are we on task for that person, or are we plan B?
We're good to go.
Okay, that is wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you today, our first speaker, Delegate Delores McQuinn, a graduate of Virginia Commonwealth University and Virginia Union University. Delegate McQuinn, a former member of Richmond City Council, was elected to the Virginia House of Delegates in 2009 and continues to serve the 70th District, which consists of Charles City, parts of Henrico, Chesterfield County, and Richmond City. We are, okay, she's there, okay. We are extremely honored that she was able to join us, considering her incredibly busy schedule. So without further ado, Delegate McQuinn, the stage is yours.
Hi, good afternoon, Melody. Thank you so much. And to Floyd, thank you for the invitation. I'm delighted to be a part of this town hall meeting. And I guess I was asked to just see if I can inspire those who are listening a little bit. You know, we are, I guess, a nation in crisis, nation, a state, and a city. And, you know, a lot of it had been fueled by, first of all, the situation that we had encountered in developing across this world, the issue of COVID-19. And then now we're at a place where there are other issues that we are challenged by. And so I have sort of, for my own personal benefit, I've looked at this, and in many ways, there is a rebirthing right now. The nation, I truly believe, is witnessing a rebirthing. And so is Virginia and Metro Richmond. Rebirthing comes with a lot of pain, unfortunately, because you're pained by the fact that maybe you've developed some norms. You are comfortable, you are complacent, and then something happens and you have to in many ways start all over again. And whether that is because of COVID-19 or now what we are dealing with across this nation as it relates to systemic racism, there is a rebirthing in this nation. And so as we look at what has interrupted our lives and our ability to see what we had envisioned, and now there's a need to re-envision what we want as we move to the next level. And it's hard starting all over again. Some of you may remember that song, starting all over again is going to be rough, going to be tough. But you know what, I am convinced that we are, in particular, as an African-American woman, there have been many times that I've had to start all over again. So as we look at this and situation that we are all right now having to deal with. You know, I'm reminded of my little granddaughter, and I've shared this this week to several audience, that when we were at the dinner table, and she was obviously paying closer attention to the television rather than the discussion at the table. And she said a couple of things. She said, "Whoa, whoa, Mr. Policeman, that's just too much. This is just too much." And everyone that I've spoken to over the last 10 days feel the exact same way. It is just too much. And so I want to say that as we express our feelings and we're being bombarded with one crisis after another, and there are many emotions that we are having to live with: sadness, exhaustion, anger, frustration, sick and tired of being sick and tired, or just plain overwhelmed. We must know, and that we have an opportunity, again, to start to benefit from a rebirthing. You know, the mental issues that have so pressed against us, compounded by the news of the untimely murders of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, and then certainly George Taylor. But as my granddaughter say, whoa, whoa, this is just too much. And then I want to say that first there's a rebirthing, but also a rebuilding. Peaceful protests that have turned violence and riots and fires that have been somewhat destructive. A lot of their businesses, Black businesses, have been destroyed. You know, looting has occurred. And all the while living with the regular stress and the trauma of living as a Black America, it doesn't seem like it's going to end. It is just too much. But we must trust and believe that we will persist and prevail. We have all the tools to rebuild. You know, we have that deal with problems. We have pieces of a puzzle to reimagine and create even a better community. And that is what comes along with rebuilding. Everyone to put valuables, their puzzle pieces on the table. And it is a time that we can no longer hide or put away the gifts, the talents, the resources that we have, because we all need to put this puzzle together, and to just not only for ourselves, but for one another. It is time for all of us to work together to achieve what I know that we have the capacity to achieve. We have been down this road before, and maybe not to this degree for many generations, but it is a time to call to action and make some pledges to provide personal assistance and a legislative agenda that will support the dismantling of civic racism in this state. There are systems that have been in place, and to dismantle them is going to take all of the energy that we could muscle up. But again, we have the tools. So there's a rebirth, there is the rebuilding, and then finally we can rebound. When you look at where we are right now as an organization, the MBL has identified the business needs and financial losses because of the coronavirus or the corona pandemic. The civil unrest that was just experienced by all of your members or many of your members. Well, then now you have an opportunity to vow to collectively raise funds, to look at how they have been affected, to support and sustain your business members during these challenging times, to set in motion an endeavor to shake the trees from the low-hanging fruit to the high-hanging fruit, but also to engage the community in helping to raise the resources that are needed to help address many of the losses that people have and that they have incurred. I believe that all we need, we have. we have right within the palm of our hands. It just takes going to the tables and sitting down and strategizing, how do we move beyond this? And so as we rebound, I just want to send a message that the future is better than the past. It definitely will be. And I know as you look out now, and because of the despondency that exists, I believe that if you look, there are some rising stars in all of this that we have not seen. And those stars that have been there all the time, I believe that they have new ideas, they have new perspective, they can now take those things and put it to work. Because finally, we cannot afford to give up. We must persevere, because what we do today will lay the groundwork for the next generation of tomorrow business leaders, for our children, for our grandkids, and they're looking at us, see if we will rise out of this. And I know we will rise out of ashes. So when we pass the baton, we want to pass it on. So much abundance and pride and confidence that our children will say, whoa, whoa, this is just too much. God bless you, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Delegate McQuinn. Thank you so much. We're honored to have you here with us today. We really appreciate it. And we're now going to hear from Dr. Tiffany Jana. Dr. Jana is the founder and president of TMI Consulting. Dr. Jana is a non-binary awareness artist and pleasure activist. They use their work and art to create a loving embrace of people and culture that includes an emphasis on liberation through joy. Their artistic expression includes painting, poetry, and performing arts. Dr. Jana is the author of 4 inclusion books, including 3 bestsellers. They are the founder of TMI Consulting, Inc., the world's first diversity-focused certified benefit corporation. Dr. Jana has been featured in numerous publications and media, including Fast Company, New York Times, and Forbes, for their work on diversity, equity, empowerment, and inclusion. They've done a TEDx on privilege and were named one of the top 100 leadership speakers by Inc.com. Ladies and gentlemen, and all who are listening, I present to you Dr. Tiffany Jana.
Thank you so much for having me. The MBL is an organization that means a great deal to me. Back when my business was very tiny and brand new, Oliver Singleton was a great champion of my work, and I wouldn't be here without you all, so thank you. Delegate McQuinn, thank you for everything that you said. You covered so much groundwork that I'm not going to repeat what you shared, but ditto to everything Delegate McQuinn said, and thank you for your leadership. What I want to focus on today for our business leaders is a concept that I'm calling concentric circles of care. So we are experiencing something collectively that is unprecedented, and we are dealing with multiple intersecting challenges at the same time. So any one of these single things would be enough to make leadership challenging, and we are dealing with many at once. So I want you to think about concentric circles of care when you are thinking about what to do in this situation. Your employees, the center of your concentric circles is your organization, your employees. These are the people to whom you have a great responsibility, a duty of care. In the work that I do in diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's about creating workplaces that work well for everyone. So if you have an organization, your duty of care right now is to make sure that those people are okay. So whether that means extending paid time off, recognizing that all Black people are hurting, recognizing that all people are hurting because of the pandemic itself, and creating space for people to heal, for people to do what needs to be done to take care of themselves during this extraordinary moment. So, are we forcing people to work to deadlines that are artificial? Are we engaging in business as usual because that's just what business does? Or are we being incredibly intentional and thoughtful about what we're asking of people right now and making sure that we're only prioritizing the things that must absolutely be done and that we're being incredibly gracious? Everyone is being collectively traumatized at the same time, and how you lead in this moment will dictate so much about your future success, how you are seen, and certainly where you're positioned as a company, as an entity later on. Like, people will remember how you treated them while they were being traumatized. So if we look at those concentric circles of care, once you get outside of the immediate people who work with you and for you and who make your enterprise go, then you need to look beyond that. So how are we supporting their families? How are we supporting our communities, the communities in which we are housed? How are we coming together for people? Now is not the time to try to appease anyone in particular, to take a politically correct stance. If your company is trying to create an environment that works well for people, if you're trying to communicate to your customers, to your constituencies, and certainly to your clients and your employees that human equity and the right of a Black person to live are things that you can stand behind, this is not the time for you to have doubt. This is not the time for you to be subtle, right? So if you don't agree right now that Black lives do matter, there is a much larger piece of work that needs to be done by you and your leadership team if these are not things that you understand. So if you want to make Black people feel safe, in particular, in this moment, in your organization, as your clients, you need to take a bold stance. And my message to leaders is that we have so much power that we don't use. We focus so much on our bottom line, and we focus so much on the things that we are trying to accomplish for our own organizational goals. And we have a responsibility to our communities, to our cities, and to our world. So now is the time to band together with your peers. So next concentric circle is going to include the people that you work, your industry partners, your community organizational partners, the boards, the committees, the nonprofit organizations. Now is the time to leverage the weight and the power that we have as organizational leaders to say that we will not stand for any more of this behavior that has been tolerated, right? If the business leaders come together and say, this is enough, we will have incredible power to do things like defund the police and make sure that people are being held accountable for things like murder, okay? These are not small, these are not subtle, these are not insignificant. The people are marching, the people are being effective. We're seeing change in our own city that is being instigated. Issues that we've been working on for a very long time we're making movement because the people are standing up. So we need our leaders to stand beside, right? Put your money where your mouth is. If you're still solvent, if you're still bringing in money, make sure that you're supporting community organizations. You should privilege organizations that are run and operated by Black people. Make sure that you are being there for your community. Do not forget the emotional aspect of all of this, right? This isn't just business. This isn't just business as usual. A long time ago, not so long ago, people said, leave your home stuff at home, bring your work stuff to work. That is not possible. That is not possible. People are going to bring whatever is in their hearts to every space that they occupy. So it's a matter of, do you have the cultural competency? And do you have the emotional intelligence? And do you have the basic human compassion to create space for what people need right now? They need to see leaders who are willing to listen. They need to experience teams that are willing to hold space for each other. If you aren't having meetings, like, I understand that we've got to be mostly virtual right now, but if you are not having intentional gatherings, even virtually, that are around holding space, not around business as usual, then you're missing the mark. So whether it's a water cooler, virtual Zoom, a happy hour, a game night, an hour of silent meditation, book club, whatever it is, show people that they're allowed to also just be human. Because right now the human hearts are hurting. Okay, so there is room in this movement, and there's room in this time that goes beyond just Black people standing up for Black people and Black people doing what Black people do to further the cause. There is plenty of opportunity for allyship And that cuts across race, gender, age, demographic, and organizational affiliation and political affiliation. Everyone has the opportunity to do the right thing right now. This is the Holocaust of our time. This is the Civil War of our time. And if you are an organization, you will be remembered for what you choose to do right now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jana. We'll now hear from Anidra Bourne. Anidra is the Deputy Executive Director of Venture Richmond. Currently, her priorities focus on marketing downtown Richmond as a creative place to live, work, and play. Bourne has spent most of her 20-plus year career in the tourism industry, both locally and statewide, in both the nonprofit and public sector, with a focus on public and media relations, marketing, and communications. Formerly, Anidra served as the tourism coordinator for the City of Richmond, managed more than 20 community partners for the Future of Richmond's Past Collaborative, which promoted the commemoration of the 150th anniversary of the Civil War and Emancipation. She was the Director of Marketing and Public Relations for the American Civil War Center at Historic Tredegar and served as Public Relations Manager at the Virginia Tourism Corporation, promoting the Virginia is for Lovers brand. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Anidra Bourne.
Thank you all so much for having me here this afternoon and for inviting Venture Richmond to be part of this larger conversation. And thank you, MBL, for all that you have continued to do for our community, especially during these challenging times, and for the way that you all have stepped up in partnership with many others to offer COVID-19 relief during this time as well. You all could imagine we have taken a double blow, specifically businesses in the downtown area, throughout the city, but with a significant emphasis on those downtown. Many small women and minority-owned businesses who were just looking to reopen their doors as part of phase one, only to be overcome and overwhelmed over the events of these past few days. Venture Richmond is an organization charged with engaging the business and community leaders and partnering with the city to enhance the community at large, particularly with an emphasis downtown, through economic development, marketing, promotion, advocacy, and events. And as you can imagine during this time, that has been more than a challenge. We have been fortunate in recent days, given the demonstrations and protests downtown, to have very quickly received phone calls from other businesses in the downtown area who were not affected, but very eager to want to uplift their neighbors in the downtown area, to do everything they can to assist. We've been fortunate in those days to also receive input from members beyond the downtown area who also want to, as you all have stated, put their money where their mouth is and offer assistance beyond the COVID-19 efforts, but specifically to those businesses most recently affected by the demonstrations. We've been fortunate to have conversations with the MBL specifically. Floyd, thank you so much for your time in recent days as we've had these discussions on how to move forward and be of assistance immediately. We've also had the opportunity to speak with other organizations such as Chamber RVA, LISC, the Retail Merchants Association, the Robbins Foundation, the Community Foundation, on how we can assist with the physical and financial losses of those that have been most recently affected in the downtown area. For those familiar with our products and programs, you may oftentimes see our Clean and Safe crew throughout the downtown area, typically focused on maintaining our streetscapes and storefronts to put the best foot forward for downtown Richmond. As you can imagine, in recent days, their efforts have shifted much more to assisting the downtown businesses with graffiti removal, and we're looking to do more of that in the days to come. Typically, that is a focus of the city's Department of Public Works. But again, more hands at the ready to assist will be able to bring our downtown to some semblance of normalcy in the days to come. We have also engaged with an online platform, which is static at present, but at the ready to be able to assist with the financial recovery of our downtown business. We invite you to stay tuned to our social media efforts, but also to our website at venturerichmond.com, where we'll continue to keep you abreast of the assistance that will be downtown businesses. Again, thank you so much for including us in this conversation. We are so eager to continue our partnership with Elle, with many of you on this call. And if you are interested, please do follow up with us directly to be able to continue to uplift our downtown businesses. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deputy Executive Director Bourne. And now we will hear from Dr. Ram Bhagat, founder and president of Drums No Guns Foundation. Dr. Bhagat is a longtime educator, arts innovator, and peace builder who has been teaching and transforming communities for 35 years. Dr. Bhagat is a retired science teacher, arts integration specialist, and international conflict resolution trainer. He is certified in restorative justice, trauma healing, and resilience. In the early 90s, Ram co-founded Drums No Guns, a world percussion ensemble, to heal from the death of his younger brother who lost his life due to gun violence. Today, the Drums No Guns Foundation continues to work nationally with youth and families traumatized by gun violence through the art and science of healing community with rhythm. Dr. Bhagat employs drumming, dance, drama, yoga, and culturally responsive trauma healing, mindfulness, and restorative practices. He practices and teaches community building circles, community healing circles, community conferencing circles, and culturally responsive circles to promote equity and justice in all types of environments. Dr. Bhagat.
I just want to thank you, Melody, for inviting me to participate in this important conversation. And I want to echo what Delegate McQuinn said earlier, and what Tiffany elaborated on in her words, and just be transparent about the charge that I was given, which is to inspire hope. And I think the way I want to frame it is, where do you find hope if you have a terminal cancer diagnosis? Where is the hope in that? And so I usually come up with these acronyms for different things. And so the acronym that I came up with today for hope is honest opportunity for progress to emerge. That in this situation, it's an honest opportunity for progress to emerge. We have to use honesty. We have to be clear about what the opportunity is, and the progress is based on the prognosis, and the emergence is based on, if we break down that word, the emergency is in that word, emergent, coming forth. So one of the things in terms of coming forth from what I was predicting would be a trauma tsunami, and dealing with the aftermath of COVID-19 as we plan and prepare to reopen schools and whenever they will open. I look at it a little different now in terms of, we've been through a trauma tsunami, and we've dealt with an earthquake after the trauma tsunami, and there are going to be many aftershocks that we have to deal with. So it's important to try to refrain from this impulse that we have as a culture, I think, to want to move forward too fast. Like, let's move forward and let's get through this. We're in the process of experiencing an enormous collective trauma. And we have to sit with that and and try to find safety first so that we can get some clarity about really what it is that we want, instead of move forward, that we want to pay forward. What do we want to pay forward? What do we want to bring forth? So in terms of honesty, I think this is where maybe an attempt to give a clear diagnosis using the cancer metaphor might be helpful. And in one way, racism is like lethal radon gas. It's subtle, but it's just lethal, and it affects so many of us. If we're in a space, a cultural space, so to speak, where radon gas is being emitted, all of us are going to be affected by it, consciously or unconsciously. I have a friend and a colleague who wrote a book on called Mindful of Race, Ruth King, and she describes racism as like a heart condition. I've been looking at it as another chronic disease, cancer, and I see it as a form of a social cancer. It's in our cultural waters. This racism is in our cultural waters like Flint. Everyone is affected by it. It's so obvious and so prevalent and so poignant right now, and yet and still a lot of the scripts and mindsets and stereotypes and prejudices that we have are coming to the surface because that's how we've been indoctrinated, that's how we've been indoctrinated. Like, you'll hear different responses around the reaction to trauma, the reaction to the traumagenic event of Mr. George Floyd being murdered, and all of us witnessed it, where people just responded, they acted out, and then there were so many different responses to interpret or to look at, and the same kind of scripts come out, like looting and the same type of language. Those are part of those cultural waters. Right now, it's not so much about what's right or what's wrong. It's like seeing and experiencing and trying to find some type of perspective. The next piece of hope is opportunity. And so there are some people who are using this trauma in an opportunistic way, where they're pushing forth certain agendas that meet, I would say, more like hidden agendas. And the point still being is that it's not new. It's not like we've been through this for the first time, but it's an opportunity to engage in the work. So, like Tiffany said earlier, a lot of people have been involved in doing the work for a long time. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. I look at it kind of like the body, the sum total of all the chemical reactions in the body, in our physical body, is called metabolism. Everything that takes place in our body is metabolism. And there's two parts of metabolism. There's the part where you take in things and we break them down into their different parts. So we see that things are being broken down. Things are being dismantled. The other part of metabolism is anabolism. It's the building up. What do we take? How do we take those things, and how do we rebuild? And this raises a very significant question for me as we think about this opportunity to rebuild. And because in processing so much of of what's been going on, whether it's been personal loss due to COVID-19 or this collective trauma experience that's on top of or compounding a pandemic, which is generational and intergenerational and it's collective, is so what is law and order? This loaded concept of law and order. It's an opportunity to ask this question and to work around it. What is law and order without truth and justice in a racist society? How do we, what does it mean to have law and order? If there's no truth, if we haven't acknowledged the root causes of the issue, and our definition or our process of justice has to really be interrogated. And this is within the context of a racist society. The progress or the prognosis, honestly, I think that it's terminal. I think this generation, it's like we've gone to the oncologist told us that it's terminal. Our generation, we're not going to get it right. We haven't gotten it right. When we think about George Floyd, think about Breonna Taylor, think about Arbery. And 2 years ago, we were going through something similar with Philando Castile and Alton Sterling and Eric Gardner. We haven't gotten it right. We're not going to get it right, but there's still hope though, because what we can do is just like if you got a diagnosis from your doctor and it says you have so many months or so many years to live, you could spend that time in regret, or you can spend that time in paying forward. And the paying forward, the hope in all this for me is not even so much what we can do for our children, but what can we do for our grandchildren? How can because we basically have planted the seeds and our children are kind of in the same soil with us, but it's our grandchildren that can take the lessons that we teach them and pass it on to their grandchildren, so that it's like planting a tree. The trees that we plant now are going to grow and bear the fruit generations from now. Part of this process, I think, involves doing some collective and some separate healing, some intra-racial healing and some interracial healing. The intra-racial healing now shouldn't generate as much, I guess, consternation when Black folks say that we need to work together in our own space where we feel safe to dismantle, deconstruct, just process all of this. And as uncomfortable as it might be for white folks to be in a space with other white folks to work on this, I think that it's crucial that you become the work, that you do the work, and not the blind leading the blind. I think in white intraracial spaces, there need to be white folks who are quote unquote woke, helping to guide that healing process for white people to deal with in those intra-racial spaces, which will lay the groundwork and the basis for us to come together in interracial spaces. I feel like both of these processes can go concurrently, but the intraracial space is crucial. And then the emergent piece is that the Delegate McQuinn said earlier, we have the tools, we have the resources, we have the experience, we have the legacy, we have the ancestral knowledge, the ancestral wisdom, we have the genetic makeup to work together in a different process, not the same linear Western process that we fall back on that doesn't work, but more of a circular process. I like the triple C concept that Tiffany mentioned, and a culturally responsive approach to doing circles, where principles like Ubuntu, I am because we are, or the interconnectedness that we are all affected. We're a communal people. What happened to Mr. Floyd affected us on a cellular level and an atomic level and an energetic level. And then the principle of Sawubona, which is a deep concept of not just relating to each other in superficial ways, but really seeing and connecting and empathizing and supporting one another. And then this idea called massive resilience, where it's interconnecting our individual, family, community resilience to promote equity, justice, and liberation. More so than just inclusion, that it's about all of us figuring out what it means to be free from this indoctrination and this cancer of racism, so that our grandchildren can pass on hope to their grandchildren.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. B. And thanks again so much to all of our panelists. And now we're going to open it up to live Q&A. So please use this as your opportunity to ask the experts to help you think through the things that you have in your mind right now. So if you have a question for a particular person, please include that within the question that you put in either the chat or into the Q&A. Okay, so again, you can either put your question in the chat or you can hit the Q&A button that's at the bottom of your screen. And now I'm going to turn this over to Jasmine to lead us in Q&A. Jasmine, take it away.
Hello, thank you, Andrea. And again, thank you to all of our speakers today for providing insightful insight on what all has been happening in the world. I don't know if anyone has seen the chat, but we have been dropping gems in the chat of what all was said. I do want to highlight some before we go into Q&A. So Mr. Bagat, thank you so much for providing the acronym HOPE, honest opportunity for progress to emerge. That is something that everyone in the chat has been reiterating, and thanking you so much for offering us. Something that came in from Nikki McMullen, she stated, do you have cultural competency? This is actually something that one of our speakers said, and she said, that is the word for the herd. And I definitely agree. So our first question does come in anonymously, and it reads, regarding the corporate responsibility that Dr. Jana referenced, how can organizations who have remained silent during this time begin to pivot and affirm their positions of support and solidarity? Where do they start? And this question is for any of our speakers. And I'll repeat that one more time. Regarding the corporate responsibility that Dr. Jana did reference, how can organizations who have remained silent during this time begin to pivot and affirm their positions of support and solidarity? Where do they start?
So I'm happy to speak into this one. If anybody else wants it, please, jump in. But the first thing that I'm seeing my clients do, and that I'm advising people to do, is you need to make a statement. Like everyone's email, first everyone's email was flooded with COVID-19 statements, how we're responding, we're really sorry, all these things. And now people are starting to say, we see you, and make an expression of support, like just say the thing, because your silence speaks volumes. So a statement needs to be made, and certainly my company services are available if you need support trying to figure that out, but you need to do that. And then, and you can do these two things at the same time. It's most important, like if you focus solely on your public image, that's part of the problem. Okay. So when I talked about concentric circles of care, you need to make sure that the people who are in your employ see that you are there for them first, because believe you me, if you are not, you can put any statement you want out there. And if the people who work with you say, yeah, my company put out a statement, but they're working us half to death and they really don't care how we feel, you don't want that situation. So you need to make sure that you are being full of integrity about both. It cannot be a show. And if you need to do some reading and some personal work to understand why this is important and how to authentically represent into the space, then that is work that is well worth doing.
I agree. Thank you so much, Dr. Donna. Does our other speakers have a response to that?
I think also you have to make sure that you are having the hard conversations internally as an organization, whether big or small. When you do make a statement, don't claim to have all the answers. Also make sure that you're speaking with your staff on every level of diversity and inclusion, to understand their stories, to understand their personal feelings and how that transcends into their professional work. I think that's really important. And I think that those conversations can't start too soon, but they need to happen regardless.
The only thing I would add is to start to interrogate the language that you use to describe different communities and your interactions in different spaces. I call that language of domination, semantics of oppression. And there's like a 2.5, 3 hour session that can help unpack how to reframe certain types of labels that are used and that perpetuate racism and perpetuate different types of isms and otherisms and stuff like that.
Thank you so much. Now, I do have two questions that kind of piggyback off of what all of you just responded to. So first is, we touched on addressing what has happened with your employees and having that open space. What are some starting points that you can provide? I know we do have a lot of leadership on this call. So what are some ways that you can just pinpoint up how we can start those conversations, or just address it in a way that is not digging too much into what is going on, but still having that open platform for everyone to speak if they want?
I think you need to be able to allow your staff the time to breathe. In recent days, many of our staff who and our colleagues, these are changing times. These recent days have been significant to all of us. We all handle it differently. And while you may have to power through on some of your respective obligations as an employee, just for, a day prior to when we came home, March 16th, you would have had the opportunity to take a day off. So gratefully, our leadership has been very forthright from the very beginning. Our CEO has said, when you need a day, even though this is not a traditional day off, take that time. Take that time. And I think that's at least one way to start to be able to gather yourself back together again, continue forward with any necessary conversations so that people do understand. People don't know what they don't know. So I think as long as you're having an honest dialogue, a respectful dialogue with those around you, whether it's on your direct staff, whether it's within your board leadership, within your larger organization, I think those honest, respectful conversations are where we need to start.
And
Thank you so much.
This is, I mean, this is squarely in the space that I operate in. And so, you know, I've been doing diversity work for 20 years. Nobody wanted to hear it for the longest time. The volume of requests that are coming right now, it's not overwhelming. I've always been ready for it. But, you know, like the reason that people were clamoring for diversity at your organization was this, because what's happening, this is an inflection point. This is a crescendo. The music, the words, the notes, the melody has been playing in the background the entire time. None of this is new. We're just fed up. So if you have been deprioritizing and defunding and under-resourcing your diversity initiative, you need to reconsider that, because that's where the skills and tools are built to be able to have the resilience, to be able to have culturally fluent conversations. Because yeah, you can open the conversation, but the way that you framed it was, you know, without kind of really, it's one or the other. We're either opening the conversation or we're not. Because if we open the conversation and then we silence Black voices, right? Or we silence queer voices, or we silence whoever's being traumatized in the moment, we are part of the problem. So are we going to be inclusive of people and create safe environments, psychological safety for people to be who they are? Like right now, I own a company and I have one major imperative at my job, and that is to make sure that my employees know that during COVID, they are not alone, that my employees know that during these protests, that I support them, whatever choice they make, wherever they want to be. If they want to be on the front lines, if they want to be at home, I support them. And I need them to know that right now, that their first obligation is to take care of themselves. The work will always be there. Even while we're getting more work because this is happening, the work will be there. If my people need 2 3-hour naps to survive a 24-hour period of being traumatized, and they can do an hour and a half of work with a half-hour lunch break, that's a successful day to me, as long as my people are okay.
I couldn't have said it any better. Thank you so much. Another question that we had was, if we, and you can answer this how you choose, this is for any of our speakers, from Kenneth Jones, if we defund the police, who will protect the public? Now, I know we mentioned that, and this is kind of like a two-part question, so I know we mentioned that there are a lot of ways that organizations can assist and help and support financially. So first question is, like I said, if we defund the police, who protect the public, and what are some ways, or how can we get connected to those organizations that need funding, and where can we provide that funding to?
I see Ram's mute came off.
Yeah,
So.
I'll just answer it from the educator point of view and how that connects in schools. I don't think Tiffany is saying not fund the police. Mm-hmm. It's just what came to mind for me right away is, look at how much money we spend on defense as a country. Mm-hmm. We spend so much money on defense, too much money on defense. If we defund or reallocate the funding, then the way that we invest those dollars will prevent the need for some of the things we depend on the police for. It's just like justice. It's how do we do justice? If we do community conferencing, then we can reduce the number of cases or situations that the police have to address. That's a way of defunding and reallocating, where we could collaborate with the police, and instead of sending conflictual situations between citizens to the judicial system, we work in a way where they solve their own conflicts. So we're creating a more restorative system. And so that's one way. And in terms of education, we have to build a less punitive situation in our schools, a more restorative and trauma-informed situation in our schools, so that our teachers, our students, and our families know how to solve conflicts, know how to interact in positive ways around human development, know how to basically create healthy, meaningful, productive relationships.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And I want to let everyone know that's joining us today. We have a limited amount of time left for Q&A. So please, if you have questions, drop them in the chat, drop them in the Q&A. I'm going to now go into a lightning round speaker. So this is a chance for you to still answer the questions. However, keeping the responses a little shorter. Of course, we want all of your expertise, all of your knowledge, and your input, but we do want to go through as many questions as we can as well. So our next question, it does ask, Dr. Ron Bagat said that our generation will not see the changes that are needed, but we need to take steps in the right direction to allow change. Does the team think the next generation will see the changes, or could it be the generation after that?
In Native American culture, they teach for seven generations ahead. Just from my perspective now, I think there's progress being made within our generation, within the next generation. I feel like the second generation from now will have stronger roots in this transformative thinking, in this transformative thinking. So our grandchildren, or my grandchildren.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And our next question, the cycle of inflicted pain, outrage, and reactive protests have been on repeat for over 100 years. Nate Turner rebelled nearly 200 years ago. Dr. Martin Luther King would be celebrating 100 years of life to close out this decade. Why should I remain hopeful for equality even when every decade since the Emancipation Proclamation, America as a whole had witnessed, let me read that back. The cycle of inflicted pain, outrage, and reactive protest has been on repeat for over 100 years. Nate Turner rebelled nearly 200 years ago. Dr. Martin Luther King will be celebrating 100 years of life to close out this decade. Why should I remain hopeful for equality when every decade since the Emancipation Proclamation, America as a whole has witnessed Black lives murdered unjustly, taken to protest to no avail or minimal progress?
I believe that, whoever asked that question is absolutely right. That in their sort of historical contextualization, but the reality is that however incremental, we have come a long way. And with each round of these cycles, we do actually get a little bit further ahead. And now we're dealing with technology, innovation, data gathering. We are able to make a case that is so incredibly robust, multidisciplinary, multifaceted. Like we have people marching around the world for Black people right now. On Sunday, I'm hosting a call with people from 6 continents who are going to speak life into the situation that's happening here. So it is okay to be hopeful because we find ourselves in a different set of circumstances, and we do have access to power in a way that we didn't in those previous iterations. And we do have majority allies that we didn't have in those great numbers. It is not nearly as dangerous for a white person to stand up and say, this is crazy, I'm for Black lives. They can do that and still have a decent life. So we have a larger human family fighting for the cause. I believe there's absolutely cause for hope, and we need that hope. We cannot ourselves give up. This is like every sport and every instrument that you play, it is a head game first. And if we let them win the head game, then we will lose. So we must keep the head game and the heart game tight.
Yeah, I would just add that energy is neither created nor destroyed, it's only transformed. And the energy that we put into it is going to be passed on, and it's going to be like fuel for the next generation. And hope is real. Hope is what inspires us to create that art that we create.
Thank you, Dr. Bagat and Dr. Jana. I will say, Dr. Bagat, the words that you expressed or that you state literally gives, and this is in the life lesson, a history lesson, and a science lesson all in one. So I do want to say thank you so much. And thank you to all of our speakers today. We greatly appreciate your thoughts, your advice, your knowledge. And I do want to pass it now over to Melody Short to close out the program for today.
Okay, so thank you so much to everyone that joined us for this call today. Thank you, Delegate McQuinn, Dr. Jana, Anidra, and Dr. Bagat for carving out time from your day to share with us such valuable information. To our attendees, thank you for spending your lunch hour with us. We are hopeful you're leaving this session more inspired with some tools that you can use to be the change. Thanks to the gems we were provided by each speaker today. We invite you to learn more about the MBL to include programming and additional opportunities. Like our current membership promotion, we're offering individuals and small business owners free membership through June 30th. This allows individuals to take advantage of our membership offerings at no cost. We encourage you to sign up today via our website, thembl.org, where you can also learn additional ways in which you can support the MBL. We ask that you join us next week for our town hall series, next Thursday, June 11th at 12 p.m., where we will be collaborating with our community partner, Richmond Region Tourism and RVA, where our topic will be Onward, Reactivating the Region's Economy Through Small Business, Event Recruitment, and Visitors Experiences. In closing, we ask that you continue to follow us on social media platforms, to include Facebook at the MBL and Instagram at MBL-RVA for the latest information on resources, programming, and special events in support of small women and minority-owned businesses. We thank each of you again for your time today, and we ask that you make it a great day and everybody be safe.
Together.